Greetings from San Francisco Children's Art Center. I am teacher Amy, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step how we make our awesome homemade Play-Doh at our Fort Mason Art Studio so you can make it at home. And we'll also talk a little bit about the value of process-oriented art making in the creative development for children. So stay tuned, we'll have a lot of fun. To make the Play-Doh, you'll need a few basic ingredients: flour, salt, vegetable oil, water, and something called cream of tartar, which you can get in the spice aisle of the grocery store. Let's get started. So the recipe I'm going to share on the website is for a larger batch that I would make for a whole classroom of kids. I'm going to do a half batch here just to save my flour and my salt. If you're just making this for a few children at home, a half batch will be enough. You're going to start with 2 cups of flour. I'm going to put that into a nice big pot. And to the 2 cups of flour, you'll add 1 cup of salt. Regular old table salt is great. And then you'll add 4 teaspoons of cream of tartar. So again, this is the half recipe that's posted. You'll do the full recipe if you want a larger batch. And you're going to stir that until it's all mixed through. That's pretty good. And now, start the stove. And you're going to want to have this on a medium to low heat. That looks good. And then to that, you're going to add your wet ingredients. The recipe calls for 4 cups of flour, or 4 cups of water. I'm doing 2 cups of water because I'm making a half batch. Pouring that in. And recipe calls for 4 tablespoons of oil. Since I'm doing a half batch, I'm doing 2 tablespoons of oil. That's just straight up vegetable oil. Mix that through and start to get it going. Get all the bubbles out, all the lumps out. You want to get that till it's like a smooth paste. You can use the spatula or your spoon to kind of break down those lumps. Obviously, this is a part that the adult will do without the child's help. It is pretty fun to have them help you measure everything out, but when it comes time to cook and stir it, they can watch from a safe distance. All right, that's looking pretty smooth. I want to keep that going. I'll turn up just the tiniest bit. You don't want it to boil, but you do need to start to thicken up. Now you could just leave it white. Totally fine to have this plain, wheat flour white color. However, it's great to add some color to this, and it's a really good opportunity to do some color mixing experimentation. You know, if you wanted to, you could do this in 2 different pots and make yourself 2 different colors, or you could just do 1 batch in 1 color. Another time you can add a second batch. I like to use like a liquid watercolor, but you can also use food coloring. You can use craft paint, you can use finger paint, whatever was going to add a little bit of pigment to this to make it thicker. I'm going to put in a little bit of yellow, and to that I'm going to add just a little bit of blue. So your child can watch and see what happens when those 2 colors mix together to become something new. So you can do red and blue is going to make purple. Yellow and blue is going to make green. Yellow and red is going to make orange. And you can look and see, I think that color would probably be a little more vibrant. That's looking a little too pureed peas right now. So let's put a little bit more paint in there. A little bit more blue. And you'll see how it's starting to get a bit thicker too. Starting to get to where it doesn't want to be stirred much more. Turn it down just the tiniest bit. Getting a nice deep color in here now. I'm Let it all mix through. It's starting to pull away from the sides of the pan and lump up together. Oops, just found a little bit of flour in there that still can get mixed up. All right, when it gets to the point where you almost can't stir it anymore, it's too thick, feeling too thick to stir, you're gonna switch and knead it for a bit. Okay, so it's time to knead the Play-Doh. You can scoop it out of your pot. You can grab it with your hands. It's gonna be pretty warm to start, so the adult's gonna wanna do this on their own first. But as soon as it gets cool enough for your child to touch, you can have them help with the kneading part. Almost got it all out here. So I'm just going to keep turning it over on itself. It's pretty hot to start. You can wait till it cools to however you're comfortable. The sooner you start kneading when it's warm, the more elastic the Play-Doh will become. So as soon as you can bear to touch it, go for it. Now it's starting to see how much more pliable it's becoming. All right, so you'll keep kneading that for a few minutes, and then once it gets cool enough for your child to touch, you will pass a ball to them and let them help you knead as well. If you have more than one child, divvy it up evenly and pass them out for kneading. So one of the reasons that we love using Play-Doh at Children's Art Center is that it allows for really great experimentation around what we call, or what many people call, process-oriented arts learning. And what process-oriented means is that the learning happens in the moment when you are creating. It's not in the thing that you create at the end and the product that you have. It's the process of making it. So everybody loves to have beautiful art that goes onto your fridge, that you can post on Instagram, things that you can be proud of your child that they made, and that's a very valid thing to celebrate. However, it's important to remember that the creativity really happens and the growth really happens in the act of creating. And the awesome thing about Play-Doh is it gives them that opportunity to make and try and use this material in different ways. It really gets the critical thinking rolling in their brains. How can you mold, shape, bend, twist this in different ways to make different expressions? And then when you're done, you just squish it up and you try it again and do something different. So that's what's amazing as far as helping children and their creative development with something just as simple as flour, salt, water. So if you're doing this with young children, there's a couple different ways that you can help them to learn how to make different shapes. One of the things to make a ball is to go round and round, round and round, round and round, round and round. To make a snake, it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can turn things into shapes. You can flatten them out. What happens if you press it down? What happens if you stack it up? I would suggest, you know, if your child's making a ball, they're going to want to make a snowman. I see it 1,000 times a day. After they make that snowman, challenge them. What else can you make out of something that's a ball? What else can you make that's this shape that's not just a snake? Pose those open-ended questions to them to get them thinking about what else this material could be. All right, you can also use Play-Doh to help your child explore texture. So you can go around the house and gather things that have texture to them. Here's a little bit of bubble wrap. What does it look like when you press the bubble wrap into the Play-Doh. Flip it over. What does it look like if you smash a potato masher into it? What designs can you make? So find some things that have different textures on them and allow them to explore making textures. A spoon, a fork, just about anything can be pressed into the Play-Doh, and your child gets that discovery of how to use these materials in ways to create different things. Another thing you can do with Play-Doh is think about how you can make some found object sculptures. So I gathered some things like some pipe cleaners and some blocks and a game piece and some buttons and some coffee stirrers. Really anything you gather from the house, you can combine with the Play-Doh to turn into a sculpture. So you can put some pieces that will be like at the base. You can bend and twist the wire. You can add buttons or beads, anything that you want to string through the wire or pipe cleaner, and those can become part of the sculpture. You can add pieces. And the awesome thing about this, again, completely open-ended. You can pick it apart. Ooh, sometimes something interesting and fun happens even just in taking it apart. It might become something completely new and different. So explore and experiment and try it different ways. Completely forgiving materials that allow you to explore, create, use that brain, use that creativity. And when you're done, you just squish it back together and try something new. So I have made a relatively complex little sculpture here, and I made it intentionally that complex to show how even older kids just love playing Play-Doh. My 19-year-old son is shooting this video for me right now, and he couldn't keep his hands off the Play-Doh either. So any age, even though we often use this with younger children, any child is going to love doing this. And then one way that you can challenge older kids, like maybe 5 and up, who are ready to do some observational drawing, is to then make a 2D representation of the 3D object they just created. So you can give them just a piece of paper and a pencil and challenge them to really see the shapes that they've created and try to draw them on their paper. So here's this shape I just made, and I'm going to go in and let them look and see where those shapes overlap, where the different elements and pieces break in and cut down. Adding all of those elements, encourage them to take their time. Let's get this little piece that goes around there. And again, so many different ways that you can make this sculpture and draw this one, squish it down, make something else, do another drawing. Really great thinking in the brain to go from 2D, 3D, three-dimensional, to two-dimensional. Another thing you can do is instead of going from three-dimensional sculpture to two-dimensional drawing, you can start with the two-dimensional drawing and then build it three-dimensionally with the clay. So that's a different way to think about that challenge. So I'll just do a little sample here. I'm going to start with, what would probably be like a cube or a square, and then I'll maybe make something with a triangle with it, and then a bigger sphere, maybe some smaller spheres in the front. So I'm going to try to make this in clay. So I'll start with the cube. And then I'll do this faster than your child would probably do it. And then to that cube, we'll add a triangle. And then a sphere. And then there's 3 small spheres. So let's do the 3 small spheres in the front. I'm doing this backwards so the camera can see it. When your child does it, they'll do it differently. So this is a way to think, to get kind of the brain churning around how to take something 2-dimensional and make it 3D, how to start with something 3D and make it 2D. So, new challenge. So again, slightly older kids, probably 6 and up, would be able to handle this in some form or another. Older kids can really get more complicated with it. One last thing to note about the Play-Doh, even though it is made with the ingredients that we make food out of, it is not food. It is quite salty. It won't be harmful if you eat it, but it's, you know, probably not, it's definitely not health food. So kids who have like a salty palate can kind of find it hard to resist. I always just remind kids that it's something to create with, not to eat. And I promise them a nice yummy snack at the end of Play-Doh time with food that's actually meant to eat. So that's a great way to remind children not to put it in their mouth. But not harmful if they do. Don't panic if they do, just not food. So when you're all done playing with your Play-Doh, you can store it in either like an airtight Tupperware container or in a Ziploc bag. At Children's Art Center, we will make this Play-Doh pretty frequently because lots of different kids will have their hands in it. So we want it to stay clean. If you have it at home and it's just the same kids touching it over and over again, you can make this, and if you store it airtight, it'll last you for a couple weeks. So feel free to just make a batch and keep it nice and fresh, and you'll have lots of time and lots of creativity. So I hope you all had fun making Play-Doh. I encourage you to go to our website at www.childrensartcenter.org. You'll see lots of videos that we're sharing on family art activities, as well as our community page where people are sharing photos of the things that they and their children create together at home. And we encourage you to send us some pics of what you've made. You can email them to sfcac@childrensartcenter.org. And we hope that you'll join us again for more videos where we create together at home. Thanks again, everyone.